Okay guys, so we're gonna get started and you're here watching a printmaking tutorial with Miss Middleton's class. So everybody say hi.
Hello.
Hi, hello. Okay guys, so one of the first things that I want to talk to you about is the actual block that I'm going to be printing today. If you look at it, I have purposefully not finished it 100%. You can see that I've carved out the different holes on this flower. It's 95% finished, but if we look up here, I just want to show you the difference. I've carved a really thin line around the edge of this part of the flower, but like for example here, I didn't do any carving, okay? So why I did this is because I really want to stress the importance of remembering to actually think about every single element of the picture that you are carving. And if you forget and you don't address those elements, they're going to be covered up with ink and they're totally not going to be there when you print them. So I just want you to really take a look. You see the areas where we've got the edging carved out. We've got areas with nothing carved out, and here kind of didn't finish. This petal here, it's not carved out completely like the other ones are here. So we want to kind of look and evaluate and see how that translates when we make our final print, which we are going to do today. So the tools that you're going to be using today as you make your print, you're going to be using the brayer, okay? It looks like a paint roller.
A lot of paint rollers that you see when you paint the walls in your house or something like that are going to be kind of fuzzy. They're going to really layer the paint on thick. Most brayers aren't like that. They're made of a rubbery sort of material, and this is what we're going to be applying the ink with onto our block. We're going to be using a brayer. The brayer is what we're going to use to press down the paper on top of our print. Once we have the ink applied, you can also use a little tool like this to press it down. We want to use something that's not going to give, for example, like our fingers. If we were to lay a sheet of paper on top of our print, and we were to start just pressing down like this, our fingers are kind of fatty, they're a little bit moldable, so they would actually push down too far into the crevices. Something hard like this will hit the high spots, but it's not going to push your ink down into the crevices. And because we don't want that to happen, because then your picture is not going to show up the way you want it to. We've got our board here. This is the same board that you put on the edge of the table when you were cutting your blocks, and we're going to use this to help us ink our block today. So I'm going to start with some black block printing ink. That's what you guys are going to start on today. We're going to start with black, and then we'll move into, I've got lots and lots of colors, but there's all sorts of different colors that you'll be able to choose from for some of your final prints that you're going to make. So you're going to take a spoon, all right, guys, and when we start putting our ink on the block, we're going to start with just a little bit, okay? We're not going to put a ton on our block. We're just going to start with just a little bit, and then we're going to take our brayer and we're just going to kind of move the ink around the block. Now the purpose of us putting the ink on the block is so that we can evenly distribute the ink on our brayer before we put it on our block, okay? Because we don't want big puddles of ink gathering in any one area, because it's going to make our image not transfer the way we want it to. So we're not looking to make a nice even coat of ink on the actual block. What we're concerned about is how even is the coat of ink on our brayer. So you're just going to kind of move it around. You kind of hear a sticky, tacky noise. Y'all probably aren't close enough to hear that, but when you really start hearing that sticky, tacky noise, that's signaling to you that the ink is pretty evenly distributed onto your brayer. So after you do that, you are going to just place your block down, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to start rolling the ink onto your image. So hopefully this kind of helps you visually, and see, I just covered up that area. It's not carved, so that's not going to transfer. Anything that you draw, just because you draw it doesn't mean that it's going to transfer. It has to be carved
have to think about what space is going to be negative and what space is going to be positive. Now, I can go ahead and tell just that it's really hard for me to get ink on this flat area of the back, so I'm going to add just a little bit more ink onto my board, and then I'm going to go ahead and kind of spread that out again, try to get, and see, I'm not hearing the tacky noise yet, so I'm still kind of spreading it. Starting to hear a little bit more of that tacky noise. I'm going to bring it down to the bottom of my block just a little bit too, because I feel like it's not evenly coating. And now I'm going to go back in, and I'm immediately getting a little bit better coverage. It's picking up some of those textures that I carved into my flower. Try to get the edges because you don't want it to look undone or not finished. You can go in different directions. So you see where I've carved out here, and then this was the little petal that I told you that I didn't quite address, like it's not finished. You can see the one little interior part of the flower here that I did carve around the edge. So after that, you're just going to simply keep the block here, okay? You bring your paper to the block. So it's a little bit different than if you were picking up a stamp and using a stamp. So you want to really just kind of hold your paper over the block and make sure that you are lining it up the best you can to make sure that it's not going to be crooked, and then you're just gently, and my paper moved a little bit, but you're just gently going to drop it. And this is the point where you can go in and use either the brayer or some other type of flat tool to press down the paper onto your block. So I'm just going to kind of gently press it and then move it. I don't want to press too terribly hard, just a little bit. And if I was going to use a tool like this, I would just kind of maybe go along the edges with that. But this tool won't push the ink further into your crevices. Now the first print that you do is going to be a test print. It's going to let you know what did work and what didn't work. It's going to let you know if your cutting was successful. So this is kind of what we're moving with, or what we're working with right now. So you can see the white flower, the outlines work pretty well on this flower. You can see the white flower, what is supposed to represent the value and whatnot in the flower petals. Didn't get enough ink on this back area, or I did not press down hard enough with my brayer to transfer the ink to the paper. You can see in this area where I did not finish the flower, you know, you really have to pay close attention to detail. Otherwise, it's not going to transfer. But the good news is, for things that you haven't carved out yet, you can continue to work on those even after the first print. I can take this block over to the sink, I can wash it off, dry it really good, and I can go back and I can start carving out this area that I didn't carve successfully enough the first time, and I can take that out. If I decided that maybe I kind of like the texture in the white, I think it adds a little bit to it, but for example, if you had too much, you could always go back with your cutting tools and you could cut out some of these additional areas. If I decided that I didn't want a black background, I said, no, I really want it lighter and brighter, I could create an outline along the edge of my flower and then carve out the entire background. So you've got options even when you have printed your first print. So this is just a test print. You see what you need to work on. You get your block completely ready for your finals before you move into printing with your inks. So is everybody ready to get started? Yay! Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. I'll like hold it down.
Yep. Just grab it by the edge right here. Yep. And yep. Yay! It came out good. Awesome.